Robots Radio presents...
Today's chat is brought to you by the support of all our Twitch subscribers. Through the patronage you provide the Focus Fire chat team through the Twitch platform, we are able to provide you with the weekly podcast as well as the website and other aspects of Focus Fire chat. If you have any interest in becoming a subscriber of the FFC and gaining access to some exclusive features over in the Discord server, please be sure to visit our Twitch account and click on the subscribe button. If you're an Amazon Prime member, remember that you do have a free subscription to Twitch every month that can be used for this. And for those of you who are already subscribers, thank you again for your generosity.
You may have heard the whispers of guardians gathering in the shadows, exploring the mysteries of this world and the worlds which surround us. We are all in search of truth. Sometimes we need to focus that search. Focus that fire. And so we come together. Welcome to Focused Fire Chat.
Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on September 6, 2020 over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the lore of Mercury. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86. Green is actually taking the night off tonight, so last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Snake231k, or I'm just going to refer to you as Snake if that's okay.
Yeah, what the fuck.
Snake, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me.
Definitely. Once now we kind of get the little introduction piece out of the way, I actually want to shift focus back over to you, because usually with intro sessions, I set aside like the first 20 minutes or so just to kind of get to know more about you guys, the guest. So, I guess really first basic question is, who are you? What do you, how did you, what do you do with the Destiny community? Do you, where can we find you? All that basic information.
Well, I usually play Destiny on the PlayStation 4, and I've built a clan up, and I've tried to gather as many members as I can to build a friendly community that allows for us to easily find people to raid with or go into Crucible and things like that. I like to just try to bring as many people who don't know about this game and show them how fun and just wacky it can be.
Nice. Where on Twitter Twitter or social media can we find you?
So on PlayStation, Twitter, on Twitch and YouTube, the gaming, you can find me all at Snake231k. I've tried to make it as uniform as possible. And yeah, I often stream on YouTube gaming, but I have actually thought about switching over to Twitch. Kind of looking forward to it with my new setup. Hopefully I'll be able to increase the quality of my streams.
Nice. Yeah, because that's one of the things we were talking about before we started was the new hardware that you had gotten. So what are you really big into the game lore? I know you and I had talked about a little bit about your interest with Bungie and the art, with the skyboxes and all that. But with the time that you've had with Bungie since, I think you said it's been since Halo CE, how big of a follower of the lore are you, and what kind of sparked your interest in that aspect?
So I'd have to say probably what really, I played Destiny pretty casually and passively when I first got my hands on it, which was back in the beta, and then I didn't touch it for a couple months after it was released. And I just played it with friends, just really grinded through the story, just try to do as many raids and stuff like that as I possibly could. And then once the Taken King came out and they had the Book of Sorrow, or, just all the lore behind the worms, the Taken aspect, the darkness, his powers and stuff like that, it really showed there's a depth to this that they weren't conveying well inside the game. Mm-hmm. But if you really paid attention, first and foremost, probably the one person who really got me into it, probably my name is Bife. It's just so comprehensive, and you can just sit there and listen to hours. I mean, I've listened to I listened to his initial 3-hour video that he explained from when we found the Traveler to I think towards the end of Destiny 1. And then again, when he re-released it with the 4.5-hour version and brought it all the way up, it was, this game probably has one of the deepest lores ever. And it's so interesting because, there's the conflict, one of my favorite stories is the Shin Malphur and Dredge and Yor battle. It's just like an old Western feel. So many different themes in this game that are just astounding.
Yeah, well, and I think, because especially with, just the hodgepodge of it being like a sci-fi / Western / space opera / MMO, what have you. It's like the gamut is just completely open to run wherever they want it to. So like with tonight's topic, right, with the worlds of Destiny, what would you say was that ever particular interest to you, or were you always more kind of focused on the individual characters that populated the worlds instead?
Well, I would say the art style to the planets probably made me more invested in them because again, when the story came out, there wasn't a lot of character focus, so the game kind of had to rely on the broader strokes to keep you invested. Right. And I think it was Mars, just the whole thing with Exos, Clovis Bray, Anna Bray and stuff like that. It just was what really got me into it. It's so cool to see the concepts of what we would come to if we were given this gift of vast technological jump.
That contact with a higher intelligence, not necessarily a better intelligence, but just a higher intelligence.
Exactly.
And then so we talked a little bit about interacting with you more so outside of the show. And you said is your clan mostly PlayStation, or do you guys do cross console, like all consoles, or is it just mostly focused on the PlayStation areas?
Currently, it's mainly focused on the PlayStation, but I'm hoping with the avenue of an actual gaming PC, I'll be able to spread more over to PC, because my sister's over there, her boyfriend, I got them to play, but primarily PS4, but I'm hoping to expand.
Nice. And then the ever infamous question that we always like ending with is what class do you primarily play? What's the guilty verdict on your side on that one?
So through and through, since day one, the class that spoke to me and the class that I always come back to, Titan, hands down. I love being the wall. Nobody gets past me, and I also like being the first to just jump right in and just leave a path of destruction for my friends to follow.
Is there a particular subclass, or is it just are they all pretty?
So I think probably my favorite to use is probably the Thunder Crash. But I am learning that I do like to play more of a support role with my Bubble or the Code of the Commander with the giant banner shield. I love just that feeling of I can, I will defend you, I'll protect you, get behind me.
Right, yeah. Just don't put the bubble in the wrong place.
Exactly. Yes. Or pop in and don't tell your teammates who are about to. Well,
you probably recognize that Crota. Don't put the bubble in the wrong place.
Oh, absolutely. Or if you put the bubble too far forward in the vault of glass right before you're about to DPS Atheon, and 4 of your teammates just blow themselves up with Galahorn. Oh yeah, I've been around the block a couple times.
I just remembered you said you had Billy in D1. I was like, the pain of that. Oh, yeah. That particular one.
Oh yeah.
That was Defender Titan was always, when I did play Titan, that was always the one I gravitated to with Helm of Saint 14 back in D1. And it was one of those things where I was like, whenever we got into raids, it was like, I am not responsible for any of the shenanigans that go on over there, because I have no idea what's going. I was always either Arcblade or Gunslinger for the raids.
I like having the Blade Dancer fly up to the top of the Dark Abyss in Crota's End.
Yes, it was. We were the ones that always had to go hide in the rocks. Hope that everyone was on time with the rockets.
Just sit there, just crouched, hoping nobody's going to see you. Somehow the last one on the fire team. Everybody else failed on their way up.
Oh, man. Yeah, Crota was God, man, that was a raid full of... When it glitched in Crota, it scared the bejesus out of everybody.
There's something in Crota's End that I have to say that I never got to fully experience myself, but I've heard nothing but fun stories about, is when people would down Crota and pull the Ethernet cord from the back of their
jeez,
and it would be stuck infinite Neil.
I will have to say, like, we were in a raid group, and one of the guys convinced us to try it, and I will say, like, because he was the fire team leader or whatever, and the amount of work that you had to do in order for that whole nonsense to work, we could have ended the raid like 3. I mean, it was ridiculous. It was like, we were sitting there, and like half of our group was sitting there going, we could have already beaten this. Like, you know, you guys understand, like, this is not the level of difficulty that require, like, it was just, but I will say when Crota decides to glitch into the back room, and it's like you turn around and you're running to safety, and all of a sudden he's right in front of you, and you're like, you're not supposed to be there.
No, just that heart drop of seeing a 3-story tall Titan just coming running at you. Nothing you can do about it.
It's like, you're not. No, this is our space. Oh man. Well. So to shift just a little bit over to a couple special announcements before we take a quick little ad break there. Just a quick reminder, we do run the Lore Network site. We have our weekly roundups. Those are on Wednesdays and Fridays. We do podcast roundups on Wednesday, and then we do YouTube roundups of every lore content creator that we have affiliated with the Lore Network. We do those over on that site. So please, if you haven't visited us over there, check us out. Let us know if there's anyone that we're missing, whether that is in Destiny, whether it's in Elder Scrolls. We have Cyberpunk, Fallout, Elder Scrolls, and Destiny. And Dungeons and Dragons. We have one of our Dungeons and Dragons, one of our friends from the Robots Radio Network. Actually, they have a couple lorecasts that we've kind of started helping spread the word of over on the Lore Network. So definitely let us know how we're doing over there, and if there's anyone that we're missing, we will definitely reach out to them. And then also, reminder, just real quick, we are pushing to get Green. She's not here tonight to kind of say this for herself, but because the Destiny Lore audio file, we finally have it up on Spotify. By the time you guys hear this, it will be a week or two, so it will have gone up on Spotify. I think it's going up on Spotify this week. We finally hit the threshold of 5 episodes that Spotify requires, so we got that moved over, but still, we would really appreciate any feedbacks or review or comments over on iTunes. That is the primary driver of all podcasts, really. It's kind of the lifeblood of podcasts as far as the logarithms go for getting us out into different communities. So if you have not already done that for either Focus Fire Chat, we would appreciate it for us, but definitely if you have not done it for the Destiny Lore audio file, definitely check that podcast out, because it is just basically pure lore. There is no analysis or anything like that. It's literally Green and other various members of our communities reading from the lore entries, and it's really well done. But check those out and give them a review as well. Short of that, we're going to take a really quick little ad break, and then we're going to come back and we're going to jump right into what we've kind of called the cocktail knowledge to get this intro session fully underway.
Hey there, my name's Jameson, or Big Cat.
And I am Brenna, or Mother Goose.
And together, we are the hosts of the DL, Weekly Gaming News.
Each week, we bring you the top stories from last week, as well as something you might have missed.
Our goal is to start a conversation about what's going on in the world of gaming.
And every week, we have a special guest join us in the chat room, where we discuss a different gaming-related topic and learn more about our guests in the 60-second download.
And if that isn't enough, we also have Slim Jims.
So come and hang out with us every week and join in on the conversation.
Good luck and have fun, everybody.
And remember, keep your goose loose.
All right, well, now we're back. So we are going to, like I said, jump into what we've kind of come to call the cocktail knowledge area of the show. That being said, give me 1 second. All right. So, real quick, Mercury. Most people in... Well, I guess, actually, regardless of if you play D1 or D2, if you play D1, you know Mercury a little bit, but if you play D2, our understanding of Mercury, our presence of Mercury is a little bit more robust, because it's, I think, if I remember right, on D1, it was really the lighthouse, the forge, and that was it, right? There was a couple Crucible maps, but we didn't have a social space. I mean, the social space was the lighthouse. that you had to beat you had to get through trials.
Flawless 9 run.
Yeah, which is why I never visited it until Destiny 2.
There you go. But no, same thing. I tried it once. Me and my friends, we were feeling, oh man, we're gonna go into trials. We're gonna conquer this beast. And I think we lost 3 games in a row, and that is when I decided, you know what, trials isn't for me. And I'd like to consider myself like above average in most PvP games, and I've never had something humble me so fast in my entire life.
I remember, I don't even know if I tried trials, because I remember looking at it, and even back then I was like, I didn't like Destiny PvP for me. It doesn't click in my head. Like I don't. I play SWAT on Halo. Like I play the most like basic version of PvP I can find. Like I have to focus on one thing. Like that's all I can focus on. So like I think I might have played 1 game of trials, and it was pretty much exactly what you were just like. It was like, yep, nope, this is a terrible decision.
And I'm on my way to trying to complete this year's Moments of Triumph, which I have not gotten this entire time. So I'm going to keep the record strong. But the when I saw the 7 wins, luckily not in a row, I was like, still.
Hey, consistency, right? That's
exactly.
Well, so like, but that being said, we have gotten descriptions of Mercury even all the way back to not many people are familiar, or well, I guess some people might be familiar if you played back in like the alpha of D1, but way back, even before Destiny was like really known, they had an ARG very similar to Halo 3's I just blanked on it and I feel terrible. Pins is going to yell at me here in a second. The bees. Gosh, man, I completely.
Oh my god. Yep, I know. Exactly
I love bees. Thank you, Pins.
I was
like, I'm waiting for the chat to catch up because I know he's gonna correct me. Just like the I Love Bees ARG, like they had this big ARG for Destiny, and it basically it led to what would then become a couple of the entries from the Grimoire, and it was particularly the Dreams of Alphi Lupi. And there, so like each of these cards were composed to reflect to a different planet. So the description from the ARG for Mercury said, one face is blistered, the other plunged into a brutal chill. Is this how it's always been? You remember hot oceans, nourishing atmosphere, but something transpired, kicked what was wet and fertile into space, stealing away everything of value. Or perhaps what thrived here for a day or for 10 million years decided to leave, peeling its wet organics off the bone. A name offers itself, and another and 1,000 more. The answer feels like the iron heart of a collapsed star, and you realize the union between the past and the future is now. Now, most of that you'll probably recognize if you read the Grimoire, but actually those last 2 pieces, the name offers itself to the end, those are actually removed from the Grimoire. The only way you would know them is if you had read the ARG, and there was this really cool wallpaper that they made out of the ARG. It was really pretty. But that was really the one of the first introductions to the planets in general. Mercury was one of the earliest ones that we got introduced to. The Grimoire would later, when the Grimoire first came out, they had a card specifically for Mercury, and it read, legends say that Mercury was once a garden world. Now its surface, baked in the sun's glare, is honeycombed with forgotten Vex structures. No life stirs here, not anymore. So we were introduced from the very beginning as Mercury is no longer a living place. It was once a utopia, but this is a planet that pretty much completely belongs to the Vex, which has been doubled down and really built on with Destiny 2, which, anyone who plays Destiny 2 will be not surprised. We have the Infinite Forest predominantly across there. With the Curse of Osiris DLC, that was the big focus. The other thing that I kind of wanted to call out that I found rather curious was actually from a Ghost. We had Grimoire cards, and then Grimoire cards would then have later in the later part of D1 they came out with what was called Ghost Fragments, And Ghost Fragments were pretty much, I think they were pretty centered around the Crucible maps for the most part. There were a couple that were different aspects, but the Ghost Fragment for the Crucible map from D1 Vertigo actually had hints to what would later be revealed as the Infinite Forest, which was a really interesting thing when I was looking through some of the notes. There was a comment from the characters that were speaking that actually called out some of the mathematics and the probability machines that were taking place in Mercury. And so there was a really cool little nod there. Do you remember anything other, like anything else from D1 that was, or actually do you remember any like brief things for, I know we're going to talk about the actual Mercury here in a second, but
one thing that immediately stood out to me, probably what really reinvigorated my love for being a Titan, was the Order of the Sunbreak Titans on Mercury. What the name of them exactly was called, but you have that whole introduction mission where you get the Hammer of Soul, and you have
from the Forge.
That lady just talking to you and telling you what it means to be a Sunbreak, what it means to be a Titan. And ever since then, I was hooked. Just the sheer potency of solar energy and what they turned it into.
Yeah, and then we also had I think it was Icarus. There was a facility that was mentioned as harness. Like, we basically got confirmation that the sun produced solar light because there was a facility that was responsible for taking the energy from the sun and converting it into solar light. And the reason they called it out was apparently all the weapon foundries were like just slathering to try to get a hold of it. I can only imagine Amalon being there being like, please give us, like, it's like, and the Vanguard was like, no. You're not allowed. Guardians can blow themselves up on it, but you're not allowed to do anything.
Just like the city to immediately try to make a weapon out of something.
It just cracked me up. I'm like, of course they're like, the Warlocks are researching to make sure that it's safe, but they can play on it. Like, don't blow things up too bad. But really quick, kind of just a real like reality check on what Mercury actually is. Mercury is the smallest and the innermost planet, so it is the one that is right next to the sun. As far as our system is concerned, it's not actually right next to the sun; it's still pretty far away. But it was discovered back in the 14th century by Assyrian astronomers. A single orbit, it is so close to the sun that a single orbit around the sun for Mercury would be the equivalent of 88 of our days, Earth days. Now, we kind of talked a little bit about the concept of tidal lock with, I think it was Io. Mercury is actually tidally locked with the sun, but it is a unique tidal lock, and it's called a 3-to-2 spin orbit resonance. What this means is actually that whereas like normally when you have a tidal lock, the same face of the same side of the planet or moon will always face the larger body that it's orbiting. Mercury is tidally locked in a way that basically for every 2 orbits around the sun, the planet will rotate on its own axis 3 times. So it's not completely locked, it's still rotating itself, but it's rotating at such a speed that basically a single day on Mercury would last 2 years, 2 Mercurian years. So for a full night day cycle, it would take 2 revolutions around the sun. So just crazy. And that's gonna come back in a minute when we talk about the temperature, because first off, Mercury has next to no atmosphere. It has no known natural satellites, mostly probably because it's right up against the sun. And the temperature, so like along the equatorial regions right around the middle, temperatures range from about 100 Kelvin to 700 Kelvin. That is basically the equivalent of negative 170 degrees Celsius or negative 200 degrees Fahrenheit, all the way up to 427 degrees Celsius or 800 degrees Fahrenheit. So depending on if it's night or day, that's where that difference, and that's a big difference. Just a bit. However, the polar regions are actually really interestingly, they remain consistent. They are consistently below 180 Kelvin, which is the equivalent to about negative 93 degrees Celsius or negative 136 degrees Fahrenheit. So they're just pretty cold. They're just cold. And so what makes this even more intriguing is that even though these temperatures are extremely high and extremely versatile and changing, we actually have images back from 2013 that are showing the presence of ice located at the floors of the deeper craters that are located at the poles. So wherever those impact craters at the poles, there's actually liquid ice from liquid water in those craters at the deep bottom. So there is actually, that has led to studies that there appears to be scientific support that portions of the planet could have been habitable for life forms such as primitive microorganisms in the past. They just actually published a new study back in March of 2020 that they kind of doubled down on that. And they said that while there doesn't seem, or air quotes, doesn't seem to be anything right now, there actually is support that it could have been. So kind of back up a little bit from there, what the planet is made of, and this is interesting again because of what we see in game. The composition is a solid silicate crust over a solid iron sulfide outer core. So again, similar to what we were talking about with Io, that silicon type material is very prevalent here. Below that outer core of iron sulfide, it is believed that there is a liquid layer that is then surrounding a solid inner core. The reason that this is kind of interesting from a scientific point of view is that this makes Mercury one of the 4 terrestrial planets within the system. However, Mercury is unique in the sense that approximately 70% of its body is metallic and only 30% of it is silicate material. So what that kind of translates into is the density of Mercury is near, if not a little bit more, than Earth's. So if you actually factor in the effect of gravitational compression for the planet, it would actually exceed Earth's density. So the density, that immense density, is what has led to the theory that Mercury has a core of basically pure iron. And compared to Earth, our own planet, surprise, our core takes up about 17% of our planet. Mercury's core takes theoretically up to 55% of it. So it's really, really thick. Like it's a thick planet. A few topographical.
Like said, of course.
It would take it. Yeah. There's a reason that the Forge is on Mercury. The Titans gravitate towards it. Some topographical notes of interest. There are currently around 15 identified impact craters. The largest crater on the surface is one that all Destiny players will probably recognize as Caloris Basin. And the reason why this thing is so large, it has a diameter of 1,550 kilometers, 1,550 kilometers, which is the equivalent of 963 miles. So that is one crater that has that. I mean, that's a huge impact crater. Yes, Chad is agreeing with me that Mercury is thick. So yeah, and then like I said earlier, like the study that just came out in 2020, March 2020, has kind of doubled down on the theory and the support of the idea that portion of this planet could have been habitable to life forms due to the ice that we've actually gotten pictures of now on those poles of the planet. So there's some really interesting stuff that is being discovered even as recently as what was that, 6 months ago?
Yeah.
It's definitely something that we're continuing to find out more and more. But that kind of leads back into this idea of within Destiny, we have this presentation of Mercury as this legendary garden planet, which is really interesting to me. I really want to, you kind of see that with the Infinite Forest when you go into the Simulant Past. But you can just, it's just like my brain is just going nuts trying to imagine what that would be like, because it's basically, because of the proximity to the sun, it would potentially be a really cool place to do that, because you would have the ability to make a really, really potent greenhouse, because you would have so much of that light, you know, you would have to accommodate for that, because like I was talking about, the temperatures are ridiculously diverse. But I mean, there's astronomy is very interesting. I will say that.
It's just all the cosmic events that had to happen for, you know, all the planetary system to be here to form, and for one lucky blue ball to get lucky enough to support enough life so we could figure out what everything else is made out of.
But so I guess, you know, like that all the science facts being done. So real quick, in Destiny, we have a number of different lore entries. Like we had talked about a little bit from D1, all the Grimoire cards. There were most of the Grimoire cards that we got from D1 were actually because of the Crucible maps. With the Taken King, we got a few interesting components with the introduction of the Sunbreakers, which was, you know, Snake, you had mentioned those. Those are fascinating, not just because of the added mechanics that it brought to the game, but also because of the glimpse into the past with the city itself. And also the fact that we have Guardians that were then introduced as basically being mercenaries through and through, which was really interesting, especially given that it was a Titan subclass, because the Titans up until that point had always been wall. And so, like, you know, with those particular cards, you know, and chat's talking about like the Osiris, the Saint 14 cards, the Lighthouse, and the new Monarchy Fire Team. Yep, and that whole cool stuff that was going on with them. We had Vertigo. We had Altar Flame is D2. Radiant Cliffs, I think, was D1. The Burning Shrine. Most people who play D2 would recognize the Burning Shrine. That was actually a map back in D1 too. Icarus, and then the ever famous Shining Sands, which was a fun map because, you know, who doesn't love a good Sparrow Racing League?
Honestly, I to this day cannot fathom why they are not bringing it back. That was just such a nice break from all the, you know, the bullets
Curse
and the punching and the space magic.
It was the most deadly boss of everyone was the forklift. But within D2, we actually, so like I said, we had a good, like, kind of a structural beginnings with Mercury with D1. With D2, we see that kind of really expand, especially with Curse of Osiris. We had pretty much the majority of that campaign with the DLC taking place within Mercury, especially within the introduction of the Infinite Forest. More recently, we had the Sundial and the Lantern of Osiris, and that whole thing with Season of the Worthy. Within our current season, we have within Season of Worthy, we had Trials and Tribulations, and then within this current season, we have Duress and Egress, which actually we are going to be talking about Duress and Egress. Oh, no, we're talking about Singular Exigent next week. Sorry. Duress and Egress, we still need to figure out a time to talk about, because there's some really interesting stuff in that book. If you haven't read it, definitely read it. Definitely redeems a lot of the characters that a lot of people have made jokes about. Looking at you, Brother Vance. A few of like the standalone entries that I pulled out was Lantern of Osiris, which was the artifact from, was it last season? Was that last? Man, was that? I think it was.
There's Season of the Dawn, Season of the Worthy, and Season of Arrivals. I think it was.
Arrivals.
I want to say it's Season of Dawn.
Was it Season of Dawn? Okay. Oh, yeah. That's right. So you had the Lantern of Osiris. You had Rumors. You had Ghost Hunter, which was an amazing entry. Super creepy entry. Epistemic, and Revanche 2, which was Revanche 2 was actually an interesting entry. That was back from I want to say it was the Awoken of the Reef. Yeah, it was the Awoken of the Reef. And the reason why I called this one out was there was a confirmation of knowledge of the Vex during the Golden Age, and again, a confirmation of Mercury. Because up until this particular entry, Mercury as a garden world had always been just kind of a myth, a legend. In Revanche 2, Mara actually confirms that Mercury was a garden world, because they talk about how the Vex, which were a known entity, took over and corrupted the planet. I'm trying to find the exact... so she said she's detected flotillas, blah, blah, blah. Mercury is, well, you can see for yourself. Gasp of horror at the clockwork cinder, all that remains of the legendary garden world. We believe this may be the work of the Vex, a machine species listed in the Ship Spire's threat index. So the only way that the Ship Spire, which was the ship that was basically the home base of the Awoken within the Distributary, the only reason that the Ship Spire would even have the Vex within the threat index would be if the Yang Luwei had it before, because that's where the Ship Spire came from. I mean, I guess you could theoretically go through some spinfoil and say that whoever created the Distributary updated the database, but I would think that Occam's razor argument is that we knew that the Vex existed. So I thought that was worth kind of calling back. Ghost Hunter is, oh my gosh, Ghost Hunter. I love this card. This is the introduction of Cyril and his ghost Strain. And basically Cyril is a Risen who goes insane and starts hunting down ghosts and then makes an armor out of the bodies of the dead ghosts that he kills. And I just really, 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 really want to see Cyril in game, or in at least I want more of Cyril's story, because Cyril has a very big dust up with Micah 10, who is referred to as the Den Mother of Ghosts, which is another character from back in the early City Age. But yeah, so that's actually my personal interest in Ghost Hunter. Do you remember any other? Do you have any other entries that you? I know you had said you were looking into some stuff. Was there any other entries before we got to the records that you wanted to mention?
Strictly around like Mars as in the background.
Around Mercury.
So I would say that the sundial stuff and what Osiris is trying to do by exploiting Vex technology and the Infinite Forest and his quest to save Saint 14. It was just, it's cool to see, us try to understand the Vex, where they come from, what they can do, and what we might be able to do with when we utilize their things. And Osiris's quest to understand the Vex has always been something that interested me, especially with the Trials of Osiris, and he was like a shadow figure for the longest time.
Yeah, because I think you saw that in the with the Drifter, when the Drifter came and looked at the sundial, and he was like, "What you doing with this, buddy?"
There's just that, and much like Cyril, I just love the dark, deeper, multi-layered stories. Much akin to the Ghost Hunter one is the oh my god, I can't believe I forgot his name. When Callum, Callum set up the whole, I guess you could say, the trap for any who might waver too far into the darkness. And I think that's, it's a story of heroes and villains, but it's not so black and white. There's, Shinlaufer hailed as one of the best, gunslingers, or the man with the golden gun, if you will. And to see him, trying to play both sides, but just weed out the weak ones so that the light can flourish. It's just, there's just so many cool backstories that just you got to pay attention to.
Oh yeah, well, and I think, and that's the challenge with doing episodes like these is we're doing the whole world lore, and it's we kind of, you mentioned this especially, it was the breadth of the lore and all the connections just are immense. They're just immense. And I mean, Mercury is I don't want to say it's the linchpin for the Vex occupation, but it is a very important component of the Vex occupation because of the presence of the Infinite Forest. We kind of learned about the Infinite Forest, especially with Curse of Osiris, but even, kind of as I mentioned before, even back in D1, there was rumors of it. I think the one that really stands out is the Crucible map. I just blanked. Timekeeper, I think, was the one.
Okay.
because it was called out that Osiris was actually aware of Timekeeper because the Vex were using it to calculate things, basically manipulation of times or manipulation of realities, I guess you would say. So even back then, we knew the Vex were kind of messing with stuff that were beyond, just the right what we could see. And
sorry, if I may interject, another great lore entry that it just blows your mind because it's even like in a real world, a theory that's going on is like simulated realities. And I remember there's one, I believe it's with Mariah Sundaresh. I think I'm getting her last name right, but not her first name. But just they have this Vex head, and it's perfectly simulating the room they're in. All the surrounding environment or whatever like that. And then they're like, okay, well this is getting a little too creepy. Maybe we should turn it off. And she goes like, you know what? Maybe on second thought, we should, just in case this collapses all of reality.
Because what happens if we're a simulation?
Yeah, I mean, it's just like
man. That ties into the Praedyth. That ties into Praedyth's story, the most recent introduction of Praedyth, with Aspect and all that. Oh, that is such a good one.
Oh yeah, no, just the Vault of Glass, the Cabers Fire team. That was another thing that made me fall in love because it was the first raid. It was the first real big activity, and it had to do with the Vex. The time traveling murder Terminators, and which it kind of it's a little unnecessary to say that, but it was just. That's your introduction to the worlds. Like there are bigger things going on behind the scenes, and here's a shield made of a guardian who is literally lost to the past, present, and future, and may even be a Vex now. Like it's just like what are they smoking, and what are they? How can I get some? And like just it's just awesome,
where is
though.
it?
Yeah, exactly. Where do I have to go?
But real quick, let's take another really quick break just before we jump into the records, and then I want to talk about some of the important figures. So take a break real quick and we'll be right back.
Ahoy there, ye landlubbers! Avast! My name is Captain Logan, and I'll be your guide out on the Sea of Thieves. If you love the idea of stealing treasure, cutting down cursed skeletons, fighting off krakens, and raiding forts filled to the brim with shinies, then Sea of Thieves is the game for you. Join me each week as I dive into the news and bring back the nuggets of information that any sailor worth their weight in salt would desire. You don't have to be a pirate legend to gain access to my podcast. Just search for Keelhauled, a Sea of Thieves podcast in your podcast app of choice, or head over to robotsradio.net or captainlogan.podbeam.com and get ready to set sail for adventure. Arr.
And so we took a break. We're back. Now we're going to talk about records real quick. We mentioned one of the records, the Sundial. The other records specifically dealing with Mercury is Desperate Times, Sisters, Actions of Mutual Friends, which is a really fun one. And then one of my favorites is the Maintenance Operation Log 30037, which is basically a conversation between Osiris and Saint 14 about the trials of Osiris, which Saint 14 threatened to make named the Trials of Saint 14 because Osiris was like, you take care of him. He's like, I'm going to name them Trials of Saint 14. He's like, Osiris's response was like, don't do that. Like, just don't do that.
Yeah, they tried it once calling it the Trials of the Nine, and then I don't know what happened there,
He's like, you know how Guardians are with names. Like, just don't.
Mm-hmm.
The fun thing about the maintenance operation log is that's where we actually get confirmation of the difference between echoes and reflections, which is really important when you read Duress and Egress, because I'm not going to spoil that for you. So just read it. It's good. It explains why a certain individual within Duress and Egress is actually able to form reflections. Actions of Mutual Friends is, I think that was an earlier one that we got back from Season of Dawn, and it was basically Osiris's point of view of our getting involved with Saint 14, and it was like the start of that whole thing. And then let me think. Desperate Times, I think Sisters was the Sundial, with the Super Saiyan Scions, and then I can't remember Desperate Times. Desperate Times, which one is that one? That's Season of the Dawn as well. Oh, this was the one where they were talking. Osiris was all talking to the Praxics.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That was an interesting one as well. But yeah, the sundial is the one where the Drifter shows up and looks at the sundial and makes a comment that has driven people insane because he recognizes what's inside the sundial, and doesn't say anything, but just is basically, he's like, you sure you want to turn that on? Like,
yeah. Well, what do you got there, buddy?
You're opening the gates of hell with a Vex key.
Mm-hmm.
What? What are you doing?
And it shows the lengths Osiris will go to, complete an objective. He won't let anything stop him from the most direct path.
Right. Well, and also arguably, especially when it deals with Saint 14.
Yeah, of course.
He's like, I love the line that I think it's one of his ending lines was like, I'll leave you to your devices, you lunatic. If you short circuit the universe, you're on your own.
Fantastic way with words. There's never been one.
I just love that. I was like, if you short circuit this entire thing, it's on your head, not mine.
You do you, mad scientist.
Yeah. So, like, some important figures. We talked about Osiris. Saint 14. There's a Destiny 1 Grimoire story between Saint 14 being sent to Mercury by the Speaker to hunt down Osiris. We all, at this point, know how that ended, and then we went back and fixed that problem. So that's how Saint 14's back. There is also the Sunbreakers, which we mentioned. Sunbreakers are sadly no longer a part of the story. They were eradicated during the Red War when everyone lost their light, or the Order was eradicated. We still have Sunbreaker Titans, but the Sunbreakers as a, dare I say, political organization ceased to exist. The other big figure that is on quote-unquote our side is Brother Vance. Brother Vance is I'm going to say this with all as respect as I can, a fanatic of the disciples of Osiris. I say that also with a strong emphasis that you really need to go read Duress and Egress, because I really like how they took his story and changed the direction that it went in. He has a bit of redemption at the end there. Vex figures obviously are the next really big thing. There's not really any that I was able to find any named cabal other than a few what's referred to as reflections, or not reflections, proxies that the Vex are simulating of the Cabal and the Hive. But Vex themselves, you have Dendron, who was the root mind, who was actually the Vex mind that was responsible for seeding the planet back during the Golden Age, and converting it, which then led to the creation of the Infinite Forest. And within the Infinite Forest, we all are familiar with who the Infinite Mind is, Panoptes. Panoptes is the controller of the Infinite Forest, or was the controller, will be the controller, however you want to vexify your way through that. Similar to the way Atheon is the conflux of the Vault of Glass, or Vault of Glass. Wow. Glass, not glash. Anyways, you also then have Hagios. Hagios was the Reverend Mind, who was the guardian of the Tomb of Saint 14. He was the one that we defeated to get into that tomb. And then finally, there is the Subterranean Mind. The Subterranean Mind is really the giant Minotaur that is in the Pariah's Refuge Lost Sector. He's just the guardian. Like, there's not much else on the Subterranean Mind other than he's guarding the books there. I don't know what. Oh yeah, and Dancing Veru. Yeah, that's right. There is apparently from way back in D1. There's a Vertigo card, the Grimoire card. There's apparently potential for an early Cabal expedition crew that is just stuck somewhere in the atmosphere of Mercury because the Vex were really annoyed at them and they just stuck them. Like they didn't. They're just there. So. There we go. That's really, Mercury, as far as like social space, it's not that big. It's even smaller now. It feels now that we can actually get our sparrows, which was thank you so much for that.
I don't even want to go back to those old days.
Oh gosh, it's got one lost sector. That's the Pariah's Refuge. From the name, a lot of people have made the connection. This was probably Osiris's kind of hiding hole back in the day. It looks like a warlock's refuge. It's got the giant library at the back of it. Then within the Crucible, the different areas that the Regex have kind of secured and segregated away for Guardians to use. We have the Altar of Flame, and D2 we have the Altar of Flame, Convergence, Radiant Cliffs, Burnout, and then Fragment. And I kind of mentioned a few of these when we were talking earlier, but in Destiny 1 we had the Burning Shrine, which is also in D2. We had Icarus, Vertigo, which was seriously just one of the most mind-bendingly fun maps. And then Shining Sands, which was a Sparrow Racing League map, which was very interesting. If I remember, wasn't Shining Sands the one that had like the crazy jumps through like the portals and stuff?
I think so. Yeah.
Okay, because that was, oh my gosh, I remember. Yeah, because that's right. Because it wasn't the one with the fans though. That was. Oh gosh, there was. Yeah. That was the. But yeah, real quick, just a couple of the armor sets. The armor sets were interesting in the sense that all the flavor text really it boils down to 3 entries. All the armor for the various classes have the same flavor text. The majority of them are quotes. Actually, I think all of them are quotes from a figure of Sister Feora. From her book Theories on the Vex. Sister Feora was another member of the Disciples of Osiris that we found out about in Trials and Tribulations. She was actually technically the superior of Brother Vance, but then Brother Vance, like I don't really understand the transfer of responsibilities there, but Brother Vance got put in charge of the lighthouse because of the Trials of Osiris and all the shenanigans that were going on with the music of the spheres that was reacting to the deaths within the Trials of Osiris. He got put in charge of all the stuff that was going on in Mercury because the lighthouse was located there. Sister Feora was definitely more interested in the general, it seems like she was much more interested in the general application of theories about the Vex themselves, not necessarily the lighthouse. It tied into it, but she was definitely more interested in, like, she calls out the future war cult. You had mentioned Maya Sundaresh. The future war cult has an artifact that they call the Device, which may be Vex in origin, which actually is pretty accurate to what it is. Sister Feora is also where we see the concept of the radiolarian fluid being the organic center of the Vex. She points out that structures on Venus and Mercury predate the Golden Age and possibly humanity itself. She also is the one who calls out the fact that the Vex aren't actually time traveling, they're just hopping realities, because in the flavor text on the Kairos function legs, or the Kairos function boots, she says, if the Vex had achieved what we would call time travel, surely none of us would exist now, which is actually pretty accurate. The entries of these particular armor sets are basically building out notes from Osiris with his analysis and thoughts of exploring the Infinite Forest. There, like I said, there's 3 of them. That's really, it gets pretty interesting. I don't think we have a lot of time to break into them.
This is a college course.
And that's the same as like the next couple that the weapons. Like, I love these weapons. These were the Curse of Osiris. What was it? The Forge. Lost Prophecies, the Lost Prophecy weapons. Yeah. And they're just, oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack with the Lost Prophecy weapons. I really suggest people go read, even if you just read the flavor text, it's really, really well written, I think. But yeah, and then the other, so that's the Lost Prophecies, which were weapons that we acquired through, what was it?
Excessive amounts of grinding.
yeah, which actually gets called, that was another thing that gets called out in Duress and Egress from Brother Vance, which was hilarious for him calling out a Titan, because he's like, how many realities did you tie to our own to get this weapon? He's like, I can't remember what it's like, it's got trench barrel, and he's like, get out, like, just get out. Like, I love it. But it's the weapons that we forged through I just blanked on what it was called, but there's the forge within the room that Vance actually stands in. We completed it, and then that was how, once you got all of the Lost Prophecy weapons, and you concluded with the Perfect Paradox shotgun, you would also then unlock Segura's shell. That's how you got Segura's ghost shell originally from the Curse of Osiris DLC. The other big weapon that I know a lot of people are familiar with from Mercury is the DFA. DFA was a Nightfall specific drop from Tree of Probabilities. It's a hand cannon, so I don't really have much else to tell you about it.
And it's okay.
I know that a lot of people back when it first was introduced, a lot of people really hunted that one. The other thing that we have specific as far as drops, we have currency is the little seeds.
Simulation seeds.
Simulation seeds. Thank you. Chat's having some fun memories of the Nightfall. Simulation seeds, ghost shell, we have Segura's shell. The universal wave function was I believe that was a jump ship that was a Nightfall specific. That Nightfall was a garden world. That was the drop from that Nightfall. As far as shaders, there were some pretty cool shaders. You had the Vex Chrome, the Mercury Prophetic, then you had the Kairos Black, Kairos Bronze, and Kairos Gold. All of them I thought were really, really pretty. They had some really cool combinations of colors there. You had some really cool emblems, actually. You had Music Mercury, Transit of Mercury. One of the only times that we actually saw this particular one, you had a class variant. So basically it unlocked based on what class you were playing. You had the Vex Scholar for Warlocks, you had the Vex Destroyer for Titans, and then the Secrets of the Vex for Hunters. And each one of those was based around that particular class's icon, but it was very much specific to the Mercury color palette. Which, speaking about the Mercury palette, you had the Lost Sector variants back. We kind of talked about those a couple times. The first one was the Infinite Possibilities, the Fields of Glass, Burning Silicon, Vance's Temple, and Vex Convergence, which mentions the giant public event. That's always really fun, especially when you're trying to burst Savathun's eyes and you go to the wrong side first.
And then the other reward is two tokens and a blue.
Oh my gosh, it was so bad. Then you had two Nightfalls with Mercury. You had the Garden World, which that one had, I believe it was 5 variations of the Garden World emblem, and then Tree of Probabilities, which also had 5 different versions. You had Master Gardener for the Garden World. You had Master Gardener, Garden World, Pulling Out the Roots, Blast from the Past, and Odysseus's Offspring. Each one of those was based off the score that you got from that Nightfall. Similar to the Tree of Probabilities, the options with the Tree of Probabilities was Master Cartographer, Tree of Probabilities, Valus Intrigue, No More Lasers, and a Forest of Red. I know that was kind of a fast run through, but as with most emblems, there's the names kind of nods to specific things, but really not a huge amount of lore specifically within those. But yeah.
That's definitely something that was missing from Destiny 2 for a long time, was just the drought of like really any depth. Like, we were hearing these things, we were doing the Lost Prophecies and stuff like that, but not until we got to the end, for like the Perfect Paradox, did you like really get any, morsel of like, the bigger world and, more about Saint 14, another legendary figure that shaped the way the city is now, even to the Vanguard to some extent. And it's just, it's And Mercury is, I feel like, a foundation for a lot of things that lead into the broader scale. I guess, when you use the concept of time travel or reality jumping, I suppose, it really opens up avenues.
Yeah, no, it definitely does, especially when you when you throw in what the Infinite Forest as a probability generator, which we can definitely get into a little bit with the advanced session, because I know with the adventures and the quest, there is quite a bit that we do in the Infinite Forest because it's kind of the main draw for Mercury. But I think for an intro session, I think that was a pretty quick and dirty run through of the basic stuff. Like I said, the problem is like the challenge with doing like world lore is there's so much I want to talk about, but if I start talking about it, I'm going to be here for 6 hours and you won't listen to me anymore. So like the Lost Prophecy weapons alone, I mean, I know there were, I mean, that was months of discussions. There's still discussions about the Lost Prophecy weapons going on. And so, that's just, there's so much that you can unpack from just those particular things. The Kairos armor, there's a lot that you can unpack from a lot of that stuff. The lore entries themselves, like the books themselves, Trials and Tribulations, I think we've actually done an episode on Trials and Tribulations. I don't believe we've done Duress and Egress yet, just simply because it hasn't gotten fully revealed in game.
Next week, I think.
I think it's this week. Well, the portion, no, that's Singular Exegete. It will be the last entry is this week. Duress and Egress is technically, there's like 3 sections. There's the first section, which was, and it's tied into the Traveler's Chosen Exotic, which it should be coming up here shortly. But like, just those 2 books alone, there's tons of information within those two. Same with the entries. It's just, there's such a, there's so much, and it's just so great to see that. Real quick, what we normally do, Snake, for the intro sessions, and actually we'll do this for the advanced session too. We do just a quick couple of shout outs. Do you have any shout outs? Can you give us a quick reminder of where we can find you on Twitter and just the internet in general?
Yes, you can find me at Snake231k on Twitter, Discord, PlayStation, and soon to be PC. I'm usually playing from 4 o'clock in the afternoon till 10 o'clock at night, trying to either Sherpa people through raids or bring my friends who I've somehow managed to convince to buy Destiny over and over and over again. And I don't know. Honestly, if I don't get a job at Bungie, I will be personally attacked, because I can't tell you how many people that I've had just buy every DLC, and then then they fell in love with it. I mean, I just recently with my cousin. Try First Light. Let's see if you like it. I'll run you through some strikes, some Crucible.
Oh yeah, First Light. Yeah, First Light's probably made that tons easier too, because they don't even have to. You don't even have to pony up cash. You just try this piece. If you like it, then let's go.
The flip side to that one too is they drop you into the world Cosmodrome. You get the first introductory mission, like we all did, and then they throw every quest that we've had for the past 3 years.
I've have a couple of friends who went through First Light, and I know that they're talking about they're going to be revamping that, which you need to. It's a little,
thank you.
So it's overwhelming, is what it is.
Oh yeah,
and it's just, but there's some really funny comments that I've gotten. They're like, what?
Yeah, I started a hunter. I've been trying to talk my sister into changing to a Titan class, because I personally think she'd be better Titan than Hunter. But hey, tease their own. And I restarted it, and I have to say, as somebody who's been playing this game, I mean, consistently for years, that is still such an overwhelming amount of information. I mean, it's just all there for you to eat. And it's like, okay, where do I start?
Oh, man. Well, for my shoutouts, just real quick, we'll be, like I said, we do the weekly stuff over on the Lore Network, so please give us a glance over there and let us know. We have the weekly Lore Roundups. We also do Destiny Defined with Rhino. His articles get published every Tuesday, I think, or currently is the schedule. So just give us a chat or give us a glance over on thelorenetwork.com. As far as next week is going to be a discussion on the Singular Exeget, which is going to be a fun one. And then also later this week, you'll hear the second part, which we're going to record right now. So, as always, I just want to thank you for your time. And until next time, remember, with wisdom we conquer. Stand strong, stand tall, and keep exploring. With that, we'll begin to wrap the chat up. Thank you again to those over on Twitch for coming to spend your evening with us. If you'd like to join us for the live streaming of the episodes, please be sure to give us a follow over on twitch.tv/FocusedFireChat. Links to all our episode archives can be found at www.thelorenetwork.com. Please be sure to email us at focusfirechat@gmail.com with any comments and or questions for the team concerning the podcast, and let us know how we're doing by giving us some feedback and a rating over on iTunes as well. So until next time, focus your fire and may your light shine bright.
You've been listening to a Robots Radio podcast. Smart shows for interesting people. Check out all the shows at robotsradio.net.